أَإِذَا مِتْنَا وَكُنَّا تُرَابًا وَعِظَامًا أَإِنَّا لَمَدِينُونَ قال هل أنتم مطلعون فاطلع فرآه في سواء الجحيم قال تالله إن كدت لتردين ولولا نعمة ربي لكنت من المحضرين صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات اللهم صل على محمد. For the love of our beloved Prophet and his beloved family, one more loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. For the hastening in the return of our beloved 12th Imam, a third final loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The topic we'll be discussing tonight, inshallah, is entitled The Art of Friendship. When we look at the society that we live in, we find that the friendships that you and I experience in our day-to-day lives have gone from being deep friendships and deep relationships to turning into very superficial and flimsy relationships and friendships. And although today we enjoy the ability to connect with one another over social media in ways that older generations truly dreamed of, the reality is the quality of these relationships that we find has only been going downwards. The relationships have become a lot more superficial compared to what we experienced in our older generations. And that is why you find people who on a surface level might have thousands of people wishing to meet them, thousands of fans screaming their names, but in reality they might feel more lonely than many other people in the world. When we come to Quran and Hadith, we find that Islam placed a lot of importance on this topic of friendship and emphasized to us that this is an issue we have to take very seriously. When you look in the verses of the Quran, there are sets of verses of the Quran that we will cover today, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains that sometimes, had it not been for the blessing of Allah, that friend of yours who wasn't a great person could have led you to hellfire. He could have been the difference between you entering into heaven or going to hellfire. And in other sets of verses of the Quran, we find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in fact speaks of those who were not as lucky because they did end up in hellfire. They look back and they blame this issue solely on the fact that they chose the wrong friends. That's why it's important for us and crucial for us to take some time and understand what friendship truly looks like from the perspective of Quran and Hadith. And furthermore, when we look on the 10th of Muharram in the plains of Karbala, we truly see the highest levels and the highest standards of friendship, brotherhood, and loyalty. You see this when it comes to the companions of Imam al-Hussein, between Muslim ibn Awsaja and Habib ibn Mudahir and Zuhair ibn Qayn amongst themselves. And you also see more than anybody else on the plains of Karbala between the Imam and his brother Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Therefore tonight we want to take some time to discuss this topic and delve into this topic, and we'll do so by posing the following questions. Number one, what did the Quran tell us? What measuring stick did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give to us in Surah Az-Zukhruf that fundamentally changes our perspective on the topic of friendship and helps us take this issue far more seriously than we already do? Number two, what are the elements that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala highlighted for us that I should keep in mind when choosing those who I would call my friends for the rest of my life? Number three, how did the sixth Imam react when a very close friend of his began swearing at one of his servants and began slandering this servant of his who was walking with him? And how did this act of this friend of the Imam affect the relationship that this friend had with the sixth Imam? Number four, what should I do if I struggle to find friends? If I find myself to be lonely, if I'm in a position where I've entered into a new environment, I haven't met friends yet, What does Islam tell me to keep in mind? And what promise did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me in this regard? And number 5, and finally, what figures and characters and examples of friendship do we find on the 10th of Muharram that shows us the highest levels of brotherhood, friendship, and loyalty? And how does this show us that in fact at times your best of friends may come from backgrounds very different from yours? Tonight, inshallah, we'll delve into these 5 questions with a loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Let us begin from here. The reality is, brothers and sisters, we take the issue of friendship, the people that we are acquainted with, very lightly. We don't take it seriously. From our perspective, it's not a big deal. Yeah, I spend time with this guy, but it's not a big deal. Yes, he commits this sin, he commits that sin, but it's not a big deal. Yes, he tramples on the rights of others, but you know, it's just a friend, it's not a big deal, so on and so forth. When it came to Quran and Hadith, they highlighted something very, very crucial. And I want to take your attention to verses from Surah Az-Zukhruf. These verses in Surah Az-Zukhruf will forever change your perspective on friendship. You will never look at friendship from the same light and from the same perspective ever again. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, of the indications of the Day of Judgment is the following. الْأَخِلَّاءُ يَوْمَئِذٍ بَعْضُهُمْ لِبَعْضٍ عَدُوٌّ إِلَّا الْمُتَّقِينَ. On that day, the close friends, the friends who were very close to each other, the friends who supposedly cared for each other so much, they will turn into enemies. إِلَّا الْمُتَّقِينَ, except for those who were fearing Allah. For their friendship becomes even stronger on that day. What is the Quran highlighting here? The Quran is highlighting a principle that many of us youngsters forget about and don't pay attention to. The Quran is saying very clearly, there is no such a thing as a neutral friendship. Neutral friendship does not exist. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, if you have a close relationship with another person, either that person shows up on the Day of Judgment and you feel like he is your enemy, so this friendship has turned into animosity, or you show up on that day and your friendship becomes stronger. What's the third option? There's no third option. In other words, the friend that you choose for yourself, either he is pushing you upwards or he's pulling you down. There is no third option. There is no such thing as, yeah, this guy's just my friend and you know, we just spend time. No, no, no. Stop lying to yourself. I have to stop lying to myself. Your friend is either that Khalil who will turn into an enemy for you on the Day of Judgment, or he is that Khalil that will become a stronger friend for you on the Day of Judgment. There's no third option. And so Islam told us we have to take this topic a lot more seriously. A lot of our youngsters are very easygoing when it comes to choosing who they want to spend time with. That's one of those areas you have to apply a lot of scrutiny. That's one of those areas you have to become very specific. There's no such thing as, yeah, you know, this guy's chill. Yeah, we spend time. He's chill. He's cool. He's chill. He's cool is not enough when you're choosing a friend. That's not enough for when you're trying to choose someone who can potentially determine what will happen to your fate forever. That's how you choose friends. You have to take it a lot more seriously. Sure, he's a nice guy, he's a cool guy, he's chill. You know, I spend time with him, we have a good time. That's good, doesn't mean he's a bad person. But also doesn't mean he meets the standard that you're looking for when it comes to the friends that you want around yourself. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changed our perspective altogether. So what are those elements that I have to keep in mind when I want to be able to choose the right friend? Aloud salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. First and foremost, of course, when it comes to the elements I have to keep in mind in choosing my friends, of course, is their religiosity. So the first elements I have to keep in mind. And we've heard about this, but you know what happens very often, even at times, if I choose a friend who generally is a practicing individual, then over time, if I see that this person is going down the wrong routes, he's going astray, now he's doing things very differently, it becomes difficult for me to say, okay, now I have to pump the brake a little bit. I may not go from the very beginning, choose someone who's not practicing. That might be a little bit easier. But you know what's more difficult? That friend who in middle school, we were all good kids. Now we've got into high school, now we've got into college. My friend's living a very different lifestyle than me. Now he's engaging in activities that my religion tells me is a big, big problem. Now he's going to this gathering, this type of relationship, that type of relationship. And you see, for a lot of us, it's a little difficult to say, you know what? If this friend of mine keeps going down this road, then at some point I have to draw the line. And at some point I have to start associating with him less. But this is what we find in the character of the Ahlul Bayt, yes? This is why you find a beautiful story in Al-Kafi about the sixth Imam, Al-Imam As-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. The narration says the sixth Imam had a friend of his who he used to spend a lot of time with. He used to come and go with him in the bazaar. He was seen with him very frequently. And this friend of the Imam had a servant with him constantly who was from a Sindh. So he was of Indian, yes, background, ethnicity. And the Imam used to come and go with him. The narration says one day they were walking through the bazaar and the sixth Imam was walking with this person. This friend of the Imam turned back and he called his servant. Naturally, a servant is supposed to stay nearby. If this person needs anything, they need help with carrying something, he's supposed to be accessible. He's supposed to be at his disposal. He turned around, he didn't find this servant of his. He moved on. The second time he turned around, he needed something from his servant. He called upon him, no response. They went forward a little bit more. Third time he turned around, he called upon him, nothing. The fourth time, the sixth Imam is walking. This friend of the sixth Imam is also walking. He turned around, the friend, and called upon his servant through slandering his mother. He said, "O son of the woman who is like this and like that." And the narration says the sixth Imam took his hand up and he slapped his own forehead. And he said, "How dare you slander his mother?" So this friend turned around to the sixth Imam, "Yabna Rasulullah, he's not Muslim. So if I said he is born from illegitimate birth, I'm not wrong in what I'm saying." The sixth Imam said, "First of all, you are wrong because every people have a marriage of their own." He has a marriage of his own. His mother got married in their own particular way. This is considered acceptable, number one. Number two, he said, "From this day forward, I don't want to spend time with you. I thought you were a person who had wara'. I thought you were a person who feared Allah. It's very clear you don't fear Allah." And the narrator says, "I never saw the sixth Imam with this person anymore." Our friends make mistakes. We make mistakes ourselves. Small mistakes you forgive. Small mistakes you get along. Small mistakes is not a big deal. When I see my friend goes down this route and he doesn't fear Allah and he says whatever he wants to say about others' reputation, this is a place to draw the line. You know something I've seen recently that is true? It is truly beautiful, something we've seen recently in today's society, is that you will find non-Muslims, when it comes to their friends, they have started drawing lines. Not because this friend drinks or whatever. No, this is part of their culture, yes. So from their perspective, it's not problematic. No, some of them said, if you see 40,000 people being killed, 60,000 people being killed, if you see a genocide happening in real life and you still stand behind it, I'm not going to be a friend of yours. This is beautiful. Non-Muslim, doesn't believe in everything we're talking about. But he or she says, if you cannot understand this much, I can't trust you. That's beautiful. They draw the line. You and I also, depending on the severity of the situation, we have to draw the line. That doesn't mean my friend makes a mistake, my friend messes up on one little thing, and then I come here and I say, well, this is done. No, no, no. I have to be forgiving because I make mistakes too, sometimes bigger than the mistake that my friend makes. No, but if I see my friend going down a completely different route and he's not coming back anytime soon, then my relationship has to change a little bit. I can't say, well, we grew up together, so now we're just going to keep things the way it is. No. Someone might turn around and say, well, Sheikh, shouldn't I still care for this person? Sure, you can care for this person. Care for this person means what? Means if this person ever wants to come back to the right path, would you still embrace them? Absolutely. Care for them means if they're ever in dire situation, I go and help them. No problem. You can care for someone and not have that person as your 24/7 acquaintance. You can care for someone and not have someone as your 24/7 acquaintance. It's possible. You can care for someone and not accompany that person all the time. There are relatives, you don't want to associate with them all the time. But at the end of the day, you care for them. Same thing with friends. I have to manage this relationship that I have with you. Doesn't mean I don't care about this person anymore. It means I pump the brakes on some things because this person's going in a different direction. So first and foremost, a level of religiosity. Element number 2, which is extremely crucial and which is missing in a lot of the friendships that you see today. That element, brothers and sisters, is honesty. Honesty. Being honest with my friends and being an honest friend for them when I see them going down the wrong direction. You ever notice this and feel this? Because I've seen it many times. You will find friend groups. They will sit together and criticize what someone else is doing. But when one of them does the exactly same thing, it's completely acceptable. I've heard this many times. Many times I have seen people, they come together, say, you see what she did? Oh, what a horrible thing she did. How could she do this? Oh no, when you did it, no, that was different. When you did it, it's okay. You're one of us. This is dangerous, scary, because now you open the door to justifying anything. You want to have a friend who is honest with you. But honesty doesn't mean that this friend of yours has to be bitter. You don't want that friend who pulls you down all the time. You want that friend who comes to you with care, with compassion, says, listen, what you did was not the right thing. We shouldn't have done this. Doesn't mean everything you do is wrong. He knows how to communicate a flaw without offending the other person. This is such a beautiful characteristic. This is why, brothers and sisters, friendship is an art. It's not just we're chilling together. No. Friendship is an art, brothers and sisters. Now I ask you, what we see in our communities, what we see amongst our own friends, do we see honesty in these relationships? No. Let me give you some examples. This sister is struggling with wearing hijab. She is struggling with this duty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So she decides to take off her hijab. The people around her, are they kind to her while pointing her in the right direction? Or no, do they say we have to support her and tell her what she did was an amazing decision because we're her friends? Speak to sisters who struggle to put on this clothing. Yes, they will tell you sometimes they receive more support when they take off the hijab compared to when they decide to put on the hijab. This is a reality. When I took it off, everybody said, good for you. I got messages from people I didn't even know. They said, you're being authentic. This is amazing. Stay true to who you are. Slogans that have truth to them, but don't necessarily apply to every situation that we want to throw it around. Amazing for you. We're so happy for you. When I decided to put it on, people turned to me. They said, why are you changing all of a sudden? You think you're better than us? You think you're more religious than us? What, you're not going to spend time with us anymore? What is this phase you're going through? Is this honest friendship? This is not honest friendship. When this young man goes out there and he posts a picture of himself in a very questionable place, with questionable individuals in a questionable environment. Then his friends come under his post, they start commenting, good for you, fire, amazing, you're killing it. This is not honest friendship. And the scary thing is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold me accountable as a friend if I'm not honest with my friend when the time comes. He will hold me accountable. Honesty, brothers and sisters, in a friendship is crucial. Doesn't mean I need a friend who's negative. Nobody wants a friend who's negative. But I want a friend who can be real with me. I want a friend who can be honest with me. Otherwise, I'm not going to grow. So element number 2, honesty in a positive way. Allow salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Number 3, the third element, brothers and sisters, that I need in my friend is for this friend of mine to be trustworthy. I need this friend of mine to be able to hold a couple secrets. I need this friend of mine to be able to be the type of person that if I share something with them, if I put something at their disposal, if I give them an amana, an object, or maybe a part of my life, that I can feel like at the end of the day, they're not going to betray me. Trustworthiness. And this has become very, very rare in relationships today. But believe it or not, as much as Islam recommended and as much as Islam encouraged trustworthiness in your friend, Islam also addressed the other extreme. What's the other extreme? Islam made it very clear that just because you have a friend that you trust so much does not mean you should share every secret with them. No, don't make that mistake. Who spoke very eloquently about this? The first Imam. Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. He said so beautifully, he said, Ahbib habibaka hawnamma, Allah. He said, love your friend, but not to the furthest extent. Because one day he might become your enemy. I know to a lot of us that looks very pessimistic. To a lot of us we say, oh, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, why would you say such a thing? I can't even imagine such a thing. And maybe the Imam would say, listen, I'm telling you from personal experience. There were times they were in my army. Then they ended up removing the head of my son in the plains of Karbala. Does Imam speak from experience? He said, Ahbib habibaka hawnamma. Your friendship with this person, it's very good. But there should be some limitations. Don't just share everything with him. Because one day he might become your enemy. This is the reality of the world. And then he continued. And he said, when it comes to your enemy, have your animosity if it's for the right reason. But always remember, maybe he will turn into your friend. Don't burn every bridge. Maybe he will turn into your friend. This is not a person who's fundamentally evil. I can burn bridges there. This is a person who's gone down the wrong route. He has issues with me. I never close the door. I am always gonna keep that door open. You never know, maybe things change. Right now, he hates my guts. Maybe 2 years from now, he matures a little bit and then things change. Who knows? And so the Imam in a different hadith, he said very beautifully, he said, when it comes to your friend, give your friend all of your love and affection, but hold on to your secrets. Because you don't know what tomorrow might bring. Trustworthiness is crucial, but that doesn't mean I go, even with my trustworthy friends, that I share everything with them. No, some things I keep back. Some things is between me and Allah. Some things is just for my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you find a friend or friends who have these 3 main characteristics, and of course there are many more in Quran and Hadith that we don't have time to cover, then you have to hold on to this friend. So you had a friend like this in middle school. You had a friend like this in high school. You had a friend like this when you went to this particular company when you were working. Now you have to hold on to that friend. You have to cherish that relationship. Don't say, oh, we moved to this different city, so, life has moved on. No, 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 no. If you find the right friend, hold on to that friend. Because you won't find many of them. That's why in the narration of the sixth Imam, he spoke about how rare it is to come across the right friends. He said the friends that you have are of two types. Ikhwanul mukashara. This is the friends that you interact with, and so you don't have a close relationship with them. And then he said there are those ikhwan, those brothers and sisters, who when things get tough, you look their direction. When things get tough, you look at his wealth the way you look at your wealth. When things get tough, you rely on their friendship. And the Imam said, وَعَلَمْ أَيُّهَا السَّائِلِ, oh, the one who's asking me this question about friendships, know أَنَّهُمْ أَقَلُّ مِنَ الْكِبْرِيتِ الْأَحْمَرِ. These types of friends are more rare than the type of gold and silver that you can find. If you come across someone like this, you see these elements, hold on to that person. Enhance your relationship. They live on the other side of the world. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes your best friends don't live where you live. They live on the other side of the world. That's fine. I'm going to keep this relationship. Maybe I send a gift. They send a gift. We visit each other every now and then. We talk to each other often. It doesn't matter. Your best friends doesn't mean the person who's always sitting beside you. Sometimes your best friend comes from the other side of the world. The Imam said, make sure you hold on to these friends. Why? Because getting the right friends in life, brothers and sisters, can be the difference between making it into heaven or making it into hell. And the Quran talks about this. The verses that we started tonight's lecture with, what do they say? When people make it into heaven, something very odd happens. Very odd. If you told any Muslim who doesn't read the Quran often, does this happen on the Day of Judgment? They'll say, no, I don't think this happens. But the Quran says it does in fact happen. What is that? The Quran says these people who are people of good deeds, they enter into heaven. Okay, alhamdulillah. When they enter into heaven, the Quran speaks of something very interesting. The Quran says, فَأَقْبَلَ بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. They start checking up on each other. So this one comes into heaven, he says, oh, you made it. The other one says, oh, you made it, alhamdulillah. This is our life forever. And you made it. And what happened to this person? What happened to this person? And then the Quran says, one of them gets up. قَالَ قَائِلٌ مِّنْهُمْ إِنِّي كَانَ لِي قَرِينٌ. You know what? I had an acquaintance. I don't see him here. What happened to him? يَقُولُ أَإِنَّكَ لَمِنَ الْمُصَدِّقِينَ. This acquaintance of mine always used to question my beliefs. He used to say, you really believe in this thing? That like you're going to go to the next world and all of this? أَإِذَا مِتْنَا وَكُنَّا تُرَابًا وَعِظَامًا أَإِنَّا لَمَدِينُونَ. You know, you believe that judgment and, you know, we're turning into dirt in our graves. And you're telling me we're going to come back and live this life again? So this person in heaven says, هَلْ أَنْتُمْ مُطَّلِعُونَ. Can you guys figure out where he is? They guide him. فَطَّلَعَ فَرَآهُ فِي سَوَاءِ الْجَحِيمِ. He looks and he sees his acquaintance in hellfire. So, word by word verses of the Quran. What does he say in those moments? He says, Tallahi in kitta la turdin. You know what? I was this close to being there with you. This is friendship. The danger passed by me so closely. وَلَوْلَا نِعْمَةُ رَبِّي لَكُنْتُ مِنَ الْمُحْذَرِينَ. If I wasn't amongst those who God showed me some grace and mercy, I would have been there too. Yes. What's the difference between heaven and hell? How far is heaven and hell from one another? The distance of one good or bad friend. That's how far heaven and hell are from each other, brothers and sisters. Literally what the Quran is talking about. And then the Quran in other verses moves on to those individuals who weren't so lucky. This guy, he made it into heaven. He's looking down upon this person, yes? The Quran also says, you know what? There are also those, they had the wrong friends, but it didn't turn out so well for them. So he comes on the day of judgment and he calls out, وَيَوْمَ يَعُضُّ الظَّالِمُ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ يَقُولُ يَا لَيْتَنِ اتَّخَذْتُ مَعَ الرَّسُولِ سَبِيلًا. The Quran has a saying. It says people on that day, they regret things so much, they bite their hands. It's a gesture they make. He says, I wish I had chosen the right path. And then immediately afterwards, he says, you know what happened? You know what I blame this on? You know what the issue was? Ya waylata, woe unto me. Laytani lam atta fulan khalila. I wish I hadn't taken this person as my friends. Look at what the Quran says. Scary, scary. The Quran says this guy in these moments, he says, لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي. I used to be on the right path. I used to live a religious life. I was practicing. But when he made his way into my life, slowly I gave up all of this. لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي. I was a person who used to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But from the moment he made his way into my life, then all of a sudden things change. And of course, maybe he can blame his friend and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, the blame lies with who? The blame lies with himself. There are those, they are not so lucky, brothers and sisters. And that is why Quran and Hadith taught us, be very selective on the types of friends that you choose. Someone might come forward and say, Shaykh, I'm in a position, I can't find good friends. What am I supposed to do? I'm lonely. I go to school, the school I go to doesn't have anyone I feel comfortable spending time with. The company I work for doesn't have anyone like that. The friend groups I have are not the best friend groups, but I don't see anybody else where I live. Number one, Islam will tell you, if you can't find the best friend right now, it's better for you to not have so many friends for a while. It's better for you to be a little alone. It's better for you to feel a little bit isolated than to go with the wrong friend. The danger of that is bigger. I'm the only one who practices like this. Okay. So you can't find anyone right now. Okay. So that means I have to spend time with these guys. No, who said so? Isolation a little bit is okay. Why are you so afraid of isolation anyways? You know, there are things and blessings that come out of isolation sometimes. Big blessings. Number one. Number two, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a promise to you and I. He said, if you continue to practice the faith, number one, and you have good akhlaq, number two, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put love and affection in the hearts of other believers for you. The Quran said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ سَيَجْعَلُ لَهُمُ الرَّحْمَنُ وُدًّا. We will place in their hearts for one another a love and affection. I'm alone, there's nobody here. For now, wait. Practice your faith. Have good akhlaq. And that friend will come. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless you. You know, there's a beautiful dua you and I recite. This dua is the ta'qibat of Salatul Isha. After Salatul Isha, in many masajid, they recite this dua. Allahumma innahu laysa li ilmun bimawdi'i rizqi. Oh Allah, I do not know where my rizq is going to come from. Everybody who reads this dua, or almost all of us, we think rizq is referring to what? Money. So you hear that dua, you say, this dua is not for me, it's for my Baba. He should recite this. He's the one who's stressed out about paying the bills. No. Rizq, any blessing. Rizq is any blessing that you get from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in that dua, what do we recite? Say, oh Allah, I don't know where my rizq is going to come from. I don't know where your blessings are going to come from. I don't know, is it in the valleys or is it in the mountains? I don't know, is it in the lands or is it in the water? I don't know, is it on earth or is it in the heavens? I don't know. But the only thing I know is that you are the one who divides these blessings. I know you're the one who decides who gets what. Part of that rizq is friends. Oh Allah, I don't know where my good friends are going to come from. I look around myself, maybe in the place that I'm living, in the place that I'm studying, it's difficult for me to find the right friends. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, that's your rizq. I have written it down for you. You continue to practice your faith, number one. And number two, have a good akhlaq. We have to be honest. Sometimes the reason why I have a lack of friendship in my life is because I don't have the right akhlaq. This is a reality. Sometimes I have to look at myself. Maybe there's something I'm not doing properly. Maybe there's something that I need to change. That's also a possibility. There are times this person comes, Sheikh, nobody wants to spend time with me. Well, you have bad akhlaq. You're harsh. You don't allow anyone else to talk. You're the one always talking. You're not interested in the lives of others. You're only interested in your own life. When people are down, you kick them down. Sometimes I have to look at myself. But if I practice my faith and I have my iman, number one. Number two, if I have the proper akhlaq, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a promise to me. You don't have friends right now? Hang in there. سَيَجْعَلُ لَهُمُ الرَّحْمَنُ وُدًّا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put that love and affection in the heart of a person who sometimes you never expect. And this is why you will find, and those who are sitting here and have their whites or their beards are white, they will tell you this. Sometimes your best friends will come from places you never even expected them to come from. Sometimes your best friend comes out of nowhere. And you just say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bless me with this person. You know what? If I had the chance to go out there and draft my own friends, I would have never picked this person. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, yes, you didn't know, but I had this in mind for you. And this is also why, brothers and sisters, on the day of judgment, sometimes you will look and see friends and you will realize why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cut off that relationship. Because you see, oh, this guy could have led me into hellfire. I understand the wisdom now. At that time, I was upset that this person doesn't want to spend time. At that time, I was worried, why doesn't this person want to spend time with me? Now I realize. Maybe behind my back, certain things were happening. Maybe this person would have become a huge problem for me. This is the rizq that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses for you and I. You don't have a friend, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might have written down some of the best friends for you just waiting to come. There are relationships that have fallen apart. Maybe those relationships would have been the type of relationships that would have gotten you into hellfire. And on the day of judgment, you look back and say, oh Allah, thank you that this friendship didn't move forward. Had it moved forward, I would have been in serious trouble. If I go at life from this perspective, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring for me friends from directions that I don't expect. Sometimes people will become your friends from very different backgrounds from you. And this is exactly what happened in Karbala. Karbala, brothers and sisters, showed us the highest levels of friendship, the highest levels of bonds, the highest levels of brotherhood and loyalty. Nothing like Karbala. On the night of Ashura, Nafi' ibn Hilal, he says, I was walking by the tent of Zainab. And the Imam entered into the tent of Zainab. And Lady Zainab turned to the Imam and said, are you sure about these companions you have with you? Or are they going to betray us like they betrayed our father? Look at friendship. Look at how friends come together. This is amazing friendship. Nafi' ibn Hilal says, in those moments, I quickly went and told my friend Habib ibn Mudahir. Habib said, let's come together to bring happiness to the heart of Zainab. This is friendship. So we came together. Habib came. Muslim came. Some of the other companions came. They started to speak loudly right beside the tents. So these women and children hear. They said, Yabna Rasulullah, we just want to make it clear, in case there are any worries, in case there are any doubts, we want to make it clear that on a day like tomorrow, we will not leave your side. You want to see friendship? Look at the 10th of Muharram, when Muslim ibn Awsaja is on the plains of Karbala, and he has entered, and he has fought, and now he is being martyred. It's the final moments of his life. Who comes up on his body? Habib ibn Mudahir comes up on his body, and the Imam comes up on his body. And it's beautiful what's mentioned in history, from what we know in history, that Muslim in those moments, he's taking his final breaths. Blood of his body is being spilt. And in those final moments, Habib turns to him and says, Muslim, I wish there was some sort of a request that you could tell me to do for you. But you know, we're in Karbala. We're in these plains. There's not much that I can do for you in these plains of Karbala. Muslim, in those moments, look at friendship. Look at loyalty. Muslim, in those moments, he says, Habib, I know, I understand. We're far away from our families. We're far away from our cities. But in the final moments, as he's breathing, the narration says, he says, I will tell you one thing that I want you to act upon. Says, yes, Muslim, what is it? He says, this one who's standing beside you. Who is that? That is the Imam. He said, the one who's standing beside you, the only request I have of you, Habib, is make sure you give your life before he has to give his life. And Habib said, yes, this one I can act on. أفعل ورب الكعبة, by the Lord of Kaaba, I will make sure that if any harm comes to Hussein, it's only after I am gone. This is friendship. This is loyalty, brothers and sisters. But there is no friendship, there is no loyalty, there is no brotherhood that comes to the level of Abul Fadl Abbas. Where did Abbas show this loyalty? Before the 10th of Muharram. Before the 10th of Muharram comes around, during these final nights, the Mal'un Shimr sends a message of immunity. Why? Because Shimr and Abul Fadl Abbas, they are indirectly related. And so he sends a message. He says, where are the children of my sister? Extended relatives. But he's trying to use words of affection and love. Where are the children of my sister? Where are the children of Ummul Baneen? And the narration says Abbas did not even respond to him. Brotherhood, loyalty. I'm not even going to respond to him. And Imam al-Hussein turned towards him. He said, my brother Abbas, respond to him. Go see what he wants. Look at the trust that Hussein has in his brother. Go respond to him. He went there, he said, what do you want from me? He said, I have brought for you a message of immunity. The 4 sons of Ummul Baneen are free to go. All they have to do is stop supporting Hussein. That's all you have to do. Otherwise, the children of Baneen, they have full immunity. And Abbas looked at him and he said, the curse of Allah be on you and your immunity. You give me immunity, and the son of Fatima is here alone in the plains of Karbala. Friendship, loyalty, brotherhood. This is a bond. But you know when that bond showed itself even more than any other time? It's when Abul Fadl Abbas came into the battlefield and he recited lines. These lines give you goosebumps. Humanity needs to marvel at these words and lines of Abul Fadl Abbas. You know what he said when he came into the battlefield? Swords coming his way, arrows coming his way, spears coming his way. He said, Ya nafsu min ba'd al-Husayn huni wa ba'dahu la kunti an takuni. Allah, so beautiful. Abul Fadl Abbas, he was speaking to himself. He said, Oh Abbas, may you be humiliated if you continue to exist after Hussein. وَبَعْدَهُ لَا كُنْتِ أَن تَكُونِي. Abbas, make sure that if any harm comes to Hussein, it's only after you have given your life for Hussein. Allah. Then he said these lines, and these were painful lines. He said, هَذَا الْحُسَيْنُ وَارِدُ الْمَنُونِ. Don't you see, the son of Fatima is going through tragedy after tragedy, calamity after calamity. وَتَشْرَبِينَ بَارِدَ الْمَعِينِ. And now you're telling me to drink from the cool water of Furat? Never. This level of loyalty, this level of brotherhood. And this is exactly why the masa'ib of tonight is so painful for Abu Abdullah. Sallallahu alayka, Ya Abu Abdullah, sallallahu alayka, Ya ibn Rasulillah. Let us take our hearts, brothers and sisters, to the plains of Karbala. and go through and recount those moments who were so painful for Hussein. They were so painful for Abu Abdullah. He couldn't take it anymore. The narration says, as the 10th of Muharram, the hours went by more and more. And every moment Abu al-Fadl Abbas is in the back of these tents, he's witnessing what's happening on the battlefield. He says he sees Habib go to the battlefield and he comes back martyred. He sees Muslim ibn Awsaja go and he comes back with a dead body. He sees so many others go and Abbas is watching this. But you know when it became so painful for Abu al-Fadl Abbas? It became so painful for Abbas when now he saw the youth going to the battlefield. Now he saw Ali al-Akbar going to the battlefield and his body coming back in pieces. And Abbas had to stand there and watch this. What did this do to the heart of Abu al-Fadl Abbas? And you know, I think the thing that really made it too difficult for Abbas on that day was when he saw Qasim go to the battlefield. Maybe Abu al-Fadl Abbas was the coach of Qasim, no? Maybe he was the one who had taught him the swordsmanship that he knew. Maybe Abu al-Fadl Abbas had taught him, oh, the orphan of my son, come let me teach you how to use your sword to defend the cause of Hussein, to give your life in the path of Allah. And now he sees his own student in the plains of Karbala. He was calling out, my uncle, come to the aid and assistance of your nephew. These things began to break the back of Abbas. Abbas is a ferocious warrior, but how much pain can he take in his heart? How much agony can Abbas take in his heart? The narration says he came to the tent of Hussein and he began saying these lines. How did Hussein take this on the 10th of Muharram? I don't know. He turned to Hussein, Ya akhi, hal li min rukhsatin, will you give me permission to go now? Allah. You know what it was? Abbas said, laqad dhaqa sadri, my heart can't take it anymore. I know I can go and fight for you, but how much longer can I watch these children go to the battlefield and their mothers come and mourn them in the back of these tents? My brother, how much longer can I see you going to the battlefield and pulling these bodies with their feet dragging on the sands of Karbala all the way to the back of the tents? لَقَدْ ضَاقَ صَدْرِي. And the narration says Hussein began to cry. وَبَكَى الْحُسَيْنِ بُكَاءً شَدِيدًا. Hussein began to cry so heavily. There were some masa'ib for Hussein he couldn't hold back anymore. He would begin to cry so heavily. Ali al-Akbar was one of those situations. And when Abu al-Fadl Abbas came to ask for permission, that was one of those situations as well. And Hussein turned to Abbas and he said, my brother Abbas, you know what the problem is? You are the one who carries the flag of this army. If you go, this whole army will fall apart. If you go, these women and children, they will no longer hear your voice in these tents. They will no longer be able to feel safe. And Abbas said, I can't take it anymore. He said, فَاسْلُبْ لِهَؤُلَاءِ الْأَطْفَالِ قَلِيلًا مِنَ الْمَاءِ. Abbas, before you go to the battlefield, once and for all, go and ask for some water. The narration says Abbas came and stood in front of this army and he began pleading to this army, you're not going to give water to me and you won't give water to Hussein. At least give water to his children. At least give water to his 6-month-old. At least give water to his women. And as much as Abbas spoke to them, the only thing he heard in response was chaos and noises. And he came back to the tent. He said, my brother, I tried. There is no water. My brother, will you give me permission now to go to the battlefield? And the narration says in those moments, Abbas heard a cry. This one broke his heart too much. He heard a cry coming from the tents, Al-Atash, Al-Atash, we're thirsty. We can't take it anymore, our Uncle Abbas. The narration says Abu al-Fadl Abbas got on his horse. An ocean of an army in front of him. And now this army has been waiting for this warrior to come to the battlefield. And he begins making his way towards this army. And the narration says every corner that he went through, this army would split open. Who's brave enough to stand in the way of Abu al-Fadl Abbas? Nobody. You know, the Furat has a long river. There are different parts of it, but there's one part, it's called the Sharia. That's the part where there is a little bit of a shore. There's a little bit of a part where you can go down to grab some water. That is where they had put the most troops of all. And the narration says Abu al-Fadl Abbas made his way all the way to the Sharia. And even at the Sharia, he made his way through. He got down from his horse and filled up this mashk. And some narration says he picked up some of this water. فَذَكَرَ عَتَشَ الْحُسَيْنِ. He remembered the thirst of Hussein. He remembered the thirst of the women and children. And he threw this water. And the narration says Abbas got on his horse and he started to head back. And now swords coming his way from every direction. And spears coming his way from every direction. And arrows coming his way from every direction. And the narration says he continued. And arrows began sitting on the body of Abu al-Fadl Abbas. And the blood starts to shed and it starts to spill. And Abu al-Fadl Abbas took so many arrows on that day. But there was one arrow, it was the most painful of all. The arrow that didn't hit Abbas was the most painful of all. The arrow that hit his water skin, the arrow that hit the mashk was the most painful of all. And the arrow hit this water, and the water started to spill away in front of the eyes of Abbas. And some narration says, فَتَحَيَّرَ الْعَبَّاسِ. Abbas didn't know. Does he go back to the tents or does he go back to Furat to get water? In these moments, the narration says someone struck Abu al-Fadl Abbas on the head and he fell on the ground and he called out, Ya akha, adrik akha, come to the aid and assistance of your brother. And the narration says Hussein ran towards his brother and he held the head of Abbas. And maybe Abbas in those moments was embarrassed. Maybe Abbas in those moments said, I couldn't bring any water for your women and children. All we know is when Hussein was heading back, after Abbas took his final breaths, he had a hand on his back. He said, Al-an inkasara dhahri. He said, now my back is broken. I don't know what to do anymore. And he came back to the tents and he pulled the column of the tent of Abbas. And all of these women and children knew our uncle Abbas is no longer coming back anymore. Our uncle Abbas has met his fate near the Sharia, near the Furat. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. Let us take our hearts to the plains of Karbala. Offer our salams to our beloved Imam and his brother Abu al-Fadl Abbas. Assalamu alayka